On January 22nd of 1902, Douglas Wrongway Corrigan was born in Galveston, Texas. Now, growing up, his family did move around a lot until they eventually settled in Los Angeles, California. Now, Corrigan dropped out of high school to work in construction. However, at the age of 18, he took a sightseeing tour, which sparked his interest in aviation. So following this, he began to take lessons at an airfield owned by B.F. Mahoney and Clyde Ryan, which would be significant because later on, once he was able to take his first solo flight, Ryan and Mahoney hired Corrigan to work for Ryan Aeronautical Company in San Diego. And this was important because that meant that Corrigan was able to be in the crew that built the Spirit of St. Louis. Now, Corrigan saw Lindbergh's transatlantic flight and he wanted to replicate that. However, he wanted to fly to Dublin rather than Paris in order to celebrate his Irish heritage. Now, after Lindbergh's flight, the Ryan Aeronautical Company did move locations. However, Douglas decided he was going to stay in San Diego and he worked as a plane mechanic at a flight school. Now, side note, he would practice very, very dangerous stunts in front of the students, and up to the point that the school told him to stop because it was a bad influence on the students and they didn't want him to crash the planes. Side note, he just flew further away from the school so they couldn't see him. But moving on. In 1933, he bought a Curtiss Robin and he started customizing it to make it suitable for transatlantic flight. So he added gas tanks and changed out the engine and did a whole lot of work, and then he got it inspected. Now, the inspector decided that the aircraft was not suitable for transatlantic flight. However, it theoretically could fly over the states. So over the next few years, Corrigan kept trying to get permission to fly, and it kept getting denied. And whilst he was seeking this permission, he continued to add more gas tanks and eventually put in nearly $900, which is about $16,000 in our money today, into this aircraft until he finally received an experimental license and a flight plan was approved for him to fly from Los Angeles to New York and back to Los Angeles. So on July 17th, Corrigan took off from LA and flew to New York. Now, when he got to New York, he was supposed to fly back to Los Angeles, but he took off at night and he claims that the cloud cover and his compass was broke and all sorts of things got him mixed up. And however many hours later, he landed at the Bell Airport in Ireland. And that is where he was dubbed Wrongway Corrigan. Now, officials came out to meet him and they were like, what are you doing here? And he was like, my compass broke. It was hazy when I left. I couldn't really see. And he couldn't produce a passport or any papers that said he should be there. However, instead of arresting him, they let him go because they were like, we've never had a random little plane fly across the Atlantic into our space, so we don't know the protocol, so I guess you can go. And so by the time that he got back to the States, news had spread, and the public loved him because he had defied authority, basically defied authority to take after his dreams, and the public really liked that image of him. So now there's National Wrongway Corrigan Day, which is July 17th, and so a couple more little fun facts is that his plane, he named it Sunshine because he'd always considered his plane a little ray of sunshine. Another fun fact is he broke more than 600 regulations due to this little stunt. Now in his obituary, the New York Times said He was an impish young pilot who had boldly thumbed his nose at authority and baldly denied it. And also said he had pulled one of the grandest wild stunts of all time. And so he had a movie based after him, The Flying Irishman. He wrote his own book. It was an autobiography, and it's called That's My Story, because basically when he got to Ireland, he said, I didn't mean to, and that was his story, and he stuck with it up until his death. So yeah. Anyways, my sources, I've gotten information from the New York Times, his autobiography, That's My Story, as well as history.com. So, thank you for listening.